We're going to go ahead and get going. Good afternoon and welcome to today's wildfire safety webinar, where we'll discuss our wildfire safety and mitigation plans and what we're doing to keep our customers and communities safe. My name is Simon Gutierrez. I work on the communications team for Pacific Power, and I'll also serve as the moderator of this webinar. Now, first off, we want to ensure that our customers are informed about the measures and investments Pacific Power is taking to make our system more resilient and reducing the risks of wildfires. Thank you for joining us here today. Today's webinar is scheduled to go until 1 p.m. The webinar will be recorded and transcribed and then posted on our website. We'll start with a presentation by Amy McCluskey, Pacific Power's Vice President of Wildfire Safety and Asset Management. And then we'll host a question and answer session at the end of the presentation. We'll do our best to answer each question. To send us your question, you can click on the speech bubble icon at the top of your screen. A panel will pop up on the right side of your screen, and you can type your question in there. As a courtesy, if you could please update your name in Teams to include the organization you're with. If you are representing any organization, that would be much appreciated. And again, today's presentation, along with the slides, will be posted to pacificpower.net/wildfire safety. In addition to more information on the company wildfire mitigation plans, that webpage also has a lot of great helpful information like outage kit checklists, links to an interactive public safety power shutoff map, and a 7-day forecasting table. You can also find a recording of this presentation on our Pacific Power YouTube channel. With that, I'll turn it over to Amy McCluskey. Amy?
Thank you, Simon. Good afternoon, everyone. As Simon mentioned, my name is Amy McCluskey, and I'm the Vice President of Wildfire Safety and Asset Management at Pacific Corp. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you today about our Oregon Wildfire Mitigation Plan and Program. I'll be speaking at a pretty high level today, but as Simon mentioned, there are more places you can look for information, and the website is a great one of those. So I think with that, we'll kick off the presentation. Next slide, Jenna. Great. So first, let's start off by reviewing the company's plan, development, and journey, and then dive into the plan itself, touching on the key elements such as risk methodology, strategic programs and system hardening, advanced weather forecasting and situational awareness, PSPS protocols, community outreach and education. And once again, given the short amount of time today, I will be speaking, to each of these elements at a fairly high level. Encourage any listener to dig into the plan itself for more information. Next slide. All right, first let's start with the plan development and journey. Pacific Corp's 2023 Oregon Wildfire Mitigation Plan, which also we refer to as the WMP, or you may have seen it previously noted as the Wildfire Protection Plan, or WPP. This 2023 plan builds upon multiple years of experience across various states, which you can see shown here on the slide. Beginning in 2018 with rulemaking in California, we've since expanded our programs to multiple states, either informally or through formal rulemaking. Currently, the company manages wildfire mitigation programs in California, Utah, Washington, and Oregon. And in 2023, our big focus in Oregon is implementing this new 2023 plan. Just like the plans in other states, our Oregon plan reflects a comprehensive, or what we sometimes refer to as an enterprise-wide approach to mitigating risk by combining input from multiple business units, subject matter experts, and industry best practices. Various individuals over a range of departments across the company actively contribute to developing and implementing our plan. Many of these departments are shown in the graphic on the lower right hand of the slide here. Given the comprehensive nature, the plan also includes long-term, multi-year investment. Currently, we plan to invest approximately $470 million over the next 5 years, which is outlined in the plan itself, and we do expect investment to continue beyond the next 5 years, so beyond 2026. This investment is intended to reduce the risk of wildfire in Oregon by moving forward key programs such as situational awareness, line rebuilds, and enhanced inspections, to name a few, all of which are identified in more detail in the plan. Next slide. Now let's talk about the foundation of the plan, which has remained fairly steady over the years. If you've participated in maybe previous webinars or other presentations, you may have seen these general elements before. It all starts with situational awareness. whether through baseline risk modeling, which combines 30 years of historical data and advanced simulations to highlight areas of greatest concern, or through dynamic seasonal risk modeling, which includes things like weather forecasting, weather monitoring, and fire modeling to understand risk at a very granular level and inform operational protocols in day-to-day decision making. So once those high priority areas are defined, we move toward increasing the resiliency of the system in those areas. This can be accomplished through program changes that focus on the way we maintain our system and tend to have shorter implementation time periods. Examples might be things like inspection programs or enhanced vegetation management practices. Additionally, increasing resilience can be accomplished through long-term investment, such as installing covered conductor. This strategy in particular aims to retrofit the system and protect against the impacts of incidental contact with power lines, which in turn reduces the risk that the electric line can become a source of a fault or spark. While system hardening aims to prevent the system from experiencing a fault, another strategy is to have a system that reacts quicker when there is a fault. This involves replacing our relays, reclosers, and fuses with new equipment that have increased capabilities, and that enables the use of more sensitive settings and different protection and control schemes out on the system. Um, our strategy to deploy these is risk-based, and we typically pair that with the installation of new fault indicators to facilitate faster restoration during outages. These three guiding principles, situational awareness, system resilience, and rapid response, form the foundation of the plan and inform the key elements of the plan, which I'll now walk you through. Next slide. The first element of Pacific Power's wildfire mitigation plan is baseline risk mapping, which informs strategic investment. In Oregon, Pacific Power provides electricity to approximately 630,000 Oregon customers via 290 substations, over 20,000 miles of distribution, and about 3,000 miles of transmission across nearly 21,000 square miles. So this is where the system-wide elements of our plan may be applied, such as weather station deployment, situational awareness, modified operational practices, and community education and outreach. As you may notice from the image, our Oregon service territory is very broad. Baseline risk mapping helps us take that broader service territory and identify areas where additional wildfire mitigation efforts make sense. In Oregon, we call these areas the Fire High Consequence Areas, or FHCA. The FHCA is grounded in 30 years of historic meteorological and fire weather data and represents the areas of Pacific Power's service territory with a heightened level of wildfire risk. The FHCA includes approximately 2,300 miles of fittingly, the FHCA is also where program changes are applied first or prioritized. Examples include changes to asset management and vegetation management practices, or implementation of system hardening programs and construction activity. To give a sense of scale, in 2022, Pacific Power completed engineering and design for replacement of 91 miles of bare conductor with insulated covered conductor. We upgraded 62 relays and reclosers to enhance protection and control schemes, and replaced approximately 1,000 expulsion fuses with non-expulsion type equipment. Next slide. Now let's talk a bit more about these programs and strategic investment. We are continuing to implement the programs that change the way we maintain our system in the FHCA. These programs include an increase to the frequency of inspections, which generally translates to inspections being performed twice as often in the FHCA. We also accelerate corrective maintenance. So when we find things to correct as part of our inspection, we prioritize that correction and move more quickly in the FHCA, which generally shifts from a 2-year correction time period to a 6-month correction time period. And we also perform annual infrared inspections of overhead transmission lines to supplement our other inspection programs. Regarding vegetation management, we are regularly reviewing best practices and exchanging information with other utilities, performing annual inspections in the FHCA, and performing annual pole clearing of equipment poles around the base of the poles, in addition to the more traditional clearance trimming, and brush removal. To give you a sense of volume, in 2022, we inspected thousands of miles of lines through the various vegetation management programs and cleared over 20,000 poles. In 2023, we intend to continue with these programs, so don't be surprised if you see our inspectors, line workers, and vegetation crews working in your communities and neighborhoods more than ever before to help mitigate the risk of wildfire. Next slide. In addition to these programs, system hardening, which is prioritized in the FHCA, includes multi-year long-term investment. And in Oregon, that is nearly $500 million to rebuild lines, replace relays and reclosers and fuses over the coming years. Regarding the line rebuild program, Pacific Power plans to construct 89 miles of covered conductor specifically in 2023 and to design another 125 miles for construction in the following year. 2023 construction activity is generally planned and currently taking place in and around Grants Pass, Oregon, so in southern Oregon. You can see that on the map. More specifically, we'll be working near O'Brien and Selma, more southwest of Grants Pass, and Merlin, which is more north or northwest of Grants Pass. As a part of the program, these lines may be either moved, removed, retrofitted with more resilient materials such as covered conductor, or converted to underground, or a combination of any of those tactics. At this time, most of the miles we're currently working, so most of those 89 miles we're currently working on, have been identified for retrofitting with covered conductor. But we do plan to continue evaluating each project as it moves through the project pipeline to come up with a fit-for-purpose solution that reduces risk. Next slide. Dynamic risk assessment through situational awareness and weather forecasting is another key element of our plan. Our approach to situational awareness includes the acquisition of data from either utility-owned weather stations or other climatological data sources to forecast and assess risk and inform real-time decision-making. In terms of data acquisition, we built an open and existing program and installed 86 additional weather stations in 2022 that collect and provide data to our meteorologists and models every 10 minutes to support operational decision-making, and are continuing to build out our weather station network throughout Oregon by installing an additional 47 weather stations to make up a total fleet of 156 stations by the end of year 2023. We've also taken steps to implement improvements to our situational awareness websites and make this weather station data, as well as other weather station data, publicly available. You can see a few snapshots of these websites on this slide here. These public-facing websites provide weather data and forecasts to the public at no cost and can be found at pacificwarpweather.com. To manage this program and make sense of all of the data, we've also hired 5 full-time meteorologists who perform advanced simulations and provide daily, event-driven forecasts to inform daily operations and risk-based decision-making. Next slide. So what do we do with all of this information? Currently, our team of meteorologists ingest this data and, using very sophisticated and high-resolution models, predict the weather and its impacts down to the power line or community level. For example, we've implemented a fire potential index that quantifies fire potential daily based on weather forecasts, vegetation moisture and complexity, and terrain, also known as environmental conditions. This allows us to pinpoint the areas of highest outage and wildfire risk during extreme weather conditions to facilitate decision-making and minimize the impact of PSPS if necessary. The success of our advanced weather forecasting and situational awareness program has allowed Pacific Power to implement several risk-based mitigating programs, like risk-based changes to work practices, such as we might make modifications to working hours or redeploy resources to perform additional patrols during high-risk periods, as well as risk-based changes to system operational practices, which I'll describe on the next slide. As previously described, dynamic situational awareness and dynamic risk assessment inform key decisions and changes to operational practices. We leverage a daily risk assessment and forecast to take action, and this action can look like risk-based work practice changes, such as deferring non-essential work, conducting daytime work only when feasible, deferring work in windy or otherwise high-risk conditions, driving on designated roads, and avoiding doing work on energized equipment where feasible. Risk-based changes can also come in the form of alternate protection and control schemes. We refer to those as elevated fire risk settings, or EFR settings. And this is where we put our equipment in a status to identify potential faults more quickly should contact with the line occur. And this reduces the risk that power lines sparking can potentially be associated with a fire. These wildfire mitigation strategies, while important, have an indirect relationship with reliability. Therefore, Pacific Power is deploying additional communicating fault indicators in strategic locations to help pinpoint fault locations, reduce patrol times, and limit the impact to customers. And finally, daily risk assessments and status reports are also used to inform the potential for a public safety power shutoff, or PSPS, which is described on the next slide. PSPS is a tool that may be used by utilities as a measure of last resort to reduce the risk of wildfires, and we understand the impact that PSPS events can have. Therefore, at the core of our decision-making and the overall PSPS program is balancing the risk of the conditions surrounding a potential event with the risk created by the de-energization itself. And you can help us safely implement a PSPS by taking steps today to prepare for an event or other types of emergencies. Step 1, update or verify your contact information with Pacific Power. Call 1-888-221-7070 or update your online account at pacificpower.net/wildfire safety. This step is particularly important because we leverage this contact information when making notifications to customers, such as the potential for PSPS. Having up-to-date contact information is the best way to stay informed of a potential event or other type of emergency. Step 2, create a defensible space. We know that many of our customers live in beautiful rural locations surrounded by vegetation. However, the way in which vegetation is maintained around a home can mitigate the risk of wildfire. For example, in Zone 1, which is considered to be the 30-foot area closest to your home, vegetation should be limited to low-growing plants, such as annual flowers, succulents, and well-tended lawns. In Zone 2, between 30 and 100 feet from the home, stick to well-spaced trees and shrubs, and islands of plants surrounded by rocks or landscaping bricks. And finally, Zone 3, which is beyond 100 feet from the home, reduce fuel fire by thinning and pruning trees and other vegetation. Step 3, you can update your emergency plan and supplies. It is important to be prepared and have an emergency plan at any time of the year. And here are a few of the essentials. Make sure you have a 2 to 3 week supply of shelf-stable food and water for all people and pets in your home. Gather a backup supply of essential medicine. Create an emergency kit with flashlights, batteries, solar phone chargers, first aid, essential phone numbers, and cash. And designate an emergency meeting location. So this is a little bit about what customers can do to help us be prepared. And now I'll talk you through a little bit about what Pacific Power is doing to be prepared. Next slide. So we're also taking steps to be prepared for a safe implementation of PSPS and mitigate potential impacts to customers and communities. First, we have the ability to activate community resource centers, also known as CRCs, which leverage temporary mobile equipment or permanent locations pre-identified in conjunction with public safety partners. When activated, these CRCs provide critical services to customers and community members such as shelter, restrooms, charging stations, on-site medical support, refrigeration, and ice. For example, during the 2022 PSPS event, we activated 3 different CRCs based on public safety partner input in Amsville, Sweet Home, and Douglas County. Pacific Power also performs individual outreach to medical baseline customers in preparation for and during PSPS events. This additional outreach can come in the form of individual phone calls instead of more standard automated calling, or physical visits to each customer's home by leveraging local public safety partners and CBOs. To ensure this additional notification can be performed, first we ask customers to update their contact information, and then to the extent that they feel comfortable doing so, self-identify and register as medical baseline with Pacific Power. And thirdly, Pacific Power is also implementing a backup generation rebate program in Oregon. New in 2023 and beginning after September 1st, 2023, the Oregon Medical Baseline Battery Rebate Program will offer a flat rebate on qualified battery backup purchases of up to $4,000 to customers enrolled in Pacific Power's Medical Baseline Program. Uh, Customers to be eligible must have purchased their backup system on or after January 1st, 2023 to be eligible to claim a rebate. And the backup power system must also be on Pacific Power's qualified products list, which you can find on our website. More information about all of these different steps and all of these programs can be found on Pacific Power's website, which once again, www.pacificpower.net. Next slide. In addition to the investment protocols and customer programs, Pacific Power takes a multi-pronged approach throughout the year to ensure wildfire preparedness and educate our customers and communities. We facilitate collaborative sessions such as tabletop exercises with public safety partners and community-based organizations, where we work with our partners to prepare for potential PSPS events or other emergencies. We also work to get key information out into the communities we serve via social media, radio campaigns, brochures, and flyers, just to name a few, all of which can be seen on the slide as examples. We also host webinars, such as the one we're having today. These efforts in general tend to be front-loaded early in the year to ensure everyone is prepared for the upcoming fire season. But throughout the year, we maintain additional information on our website, which you can see here on the screen. And with that, I believe that brings our presentation to conclusion. And I think I'll throw it back to you, Simon, for Q&A.
All right, Amy, thanks for covering all that great information. We're going to turn to the question and answers portion of the webinar, as she said. If you haven't sent us your question yet, you still can. Again, you can do this in the Teams application. Just click on the speech bubble at the icon at the top of your screen. You can then type and submit your question. We did have one question in that Q&A queue right now, and we'll start with that one. That's from Jimmy Mace. He's asking, is this slideshow unrelated to the 160-page PDF on the website? Amy?
Oh, it's an excellent question. So it's not unrelated. So our wildfire mitigation plan, which I believe is the PDF being referenced in the question, that is our plan that we file with our regulators in Oregon. Excuse me. It definitely outlines our steps, our investments, and if you were to look deep into the document, you'd actually find a section that talks about how we take this plan and try and get the information out to customers. And one of those steps is to perform a webinar. And so this is actually a webinar that is specified in that plan. So it should be very similar information. It's certainly a focused type of information from that plan, but they are very much linked, yes.
All right. And again, if you have any other questions, you can submit them in that Q&A tab at the top of the screen. We did have some questions that were submitted in advance. So we'll start with one of those. And first one is, when did Pacific Corp begin its wildfire mitigation work? And why didn't you invest in these items sooner?
Thanks, Simon. It's an interesting question. So, wildfire mitigation has always been a part of what we do. At a very fundamental level, the same work that has historically provided for a safe and reliable service to customers, things like inspection, maintenance work, repair work, also mitigates wildfire risk. So in terms of when, we've always been doing some work to mitigate wildfire risk. That being said, in recent years, Pacific Power, like the rest of the electric utility industry throughout the West, has seen, a significant shift in environmental conditions, things like extreme weather events, generally fueled by climate change. And so as that risk evolves around us and is changing very fast, we too have to evolve and increase our activity to mitigate wildfire risk, which generally means we're investing in people And so those people can be meteorologists and data scientists to bring new skills to our teams. And that investment can also be in new technology and system hardening. Um, in terms of kind of when did we formally, um, you know, create a plan? So as far as the sooner part of the question, we first developed our comprehensive wildfire mitigation plan in 2018. That was then filed with the State of California Public Utilities Commission in 2019. And ever since that filing, we've been evolving and improving our investment, ramping up our investment. And today, so where we're at today is that we do have state-specific plans in California, Oregon, and Utah. And at this point, we're investing nearly $500 million across our system in wildfire mitigation to advance the plan and advance the wildfire mitigation strategies. So hopefully that answers the question, Simon.
Yeah, Amy, that was great. Thank you. We did get a new question in the queue. This is from Amanda Arden from Coin. She says, I'm wondering what the goal is of the miles of bare conductor you'd like to have covered within the next 5 years. And is the 91 miles you covered last year the annual pace you expect to keep for the foreseeable future? So, two questions.
Sure. So the first question around kind of the pacing, in general, we're balancing how fast the work can progress. We're mitigating against supply chain risks and resource constraints to move forward those projects. So as far as why that number, that's a general reasonable number, a target we can hit. To the extent we can move faster, we certainly accelerate that work. That hardening work is important. But we are certainly facing, like most industries and like most companies, some resource and supply chain constraints. As far as the number and what we want the number to be, the way we've outlined the program, and if you dig a little bit into the plan itself, we are targeting as kind of a basic level 125 miles per year in Oregon. And so we're still in that ramp up phase to get up there, and that 89 miles gets us closer and closer to where we want to be. And then every opportunity we have to accelerate, we certainly will.
All right. And again, if anybody out there has additional questions, you can submit those in the Q&A tab at the top of your screen. Seeing none at the moment, I'm going to go back to some of the previously submitted questions. And we have, how have your wildfire efforts been impacted by labor shortages and increasing labor rates? Amy kind of touched on that a second ago a little bit. Will the impacts threaten your work? Amy?
Yeah, thanks, Simon. So, first, I do want to recognize, being able to tackle something as large as this is a tremendous effort. It takes a tremendous amount of resources. It's more activity than we've been doing. And there are a lot of new challenges we haven't faced that we have to navigate and overcome. And yes, we have seen an increase in things like labor costs, labor market competitiveness. Probably where we've seen it the most is in our vegetation management programs. So far, it's not impacting the work we're doing. We're just having to work differently to get it done. And we still are very much committed to investing hundreds of millions of dollars for wildfire mitigation work. We serve a large service territory. We certainly have a lot of resources within the company we can pull from across 6 different states. And so we are working hard to make sure we have those materials and those boots on the ground as we move our plans forward.
Thanks, Amy. We have a follow-up question also from Amanda from Coin. You briefly mentioned installing underground power. Is that something PacifiCorp wants to prioritize more in Oregon as wildfire risk increases?
Um, so as far as underground, and so this is actually the way we've approached it generally. So we have a 6-state strategy, a 6-state view. Underground is something we are considering on a case-by-case basis as part of the line rebuild program. And so certainly where opportunities exist, where we can and move underground forward, we will. One of the things we're cautious around is sometimes constructability can be challenging. Sometimes it can take longer to move those projects forward. And so a big part of our line rebuild program is to move with a sense of pace and to move as quickly as we can to mitigate the risk. And so right now it's a balancing act, and we are looking at both options.
Thanks, Amy. We've got another question from Jimmy. Obviously, the 2020 wildfires are at the top of the mind now. What has changed with respect to your PSPS protocol since then? Do you see the company being more proactive with enacting PSPS going forward? I'm going to start with an answer to that question. First off, any changes in protocol has nothing to do with ongoing litigation or anything involving the 2020 fires in terms of that litigation. Obviously, we can't comment on the ongoing litigation. We do have an official statement that's widely available on our website, and I can also distribute that to anyone that wants it. And obviously, the litigation is still going on. The company does plan to appeal, and the company is confident that we'll have success with those appeals. As to the PSPS protocols, Amy, can you address that in any way?
Sure. I can tell you in 2023 what our program looks like, and it is outlined in our plan. And there is an expanded level of preparedness. So, in terms of PSPS preparedness, one of the key elements we've been investing in is situational awareness, weather models, kind of granular data that gives us that in the moment what's going on here. So now that we have those tools and we have that data set, we're able to expand our preparedness, which does mean PSPS is something we can consider across our system. And so we are standing ready to act where we need to act when we need to act.
All right. Seeing no additional questions in the queue, we're going to dip back into one more question that was submitted in advance. And again, if you do have questions, you can submit them still. Just go to the Q&A tab at the top of your screen. We'll do one more question for right now. And let's see here. Question is, are you doing more given ongoing drought conditions? I guess that's with respect to wildfire mitigation would be my guess.
Okay, sure. I think I touched on it a little bit earlier that certainly, climate change is having a big impact on weather conditions and fuels across the Northwest. And fuels, I'm talking about vegetation fuels, things available around us. Our environment is changing and it is changing fast. And certainly our wildfire mitigation plan definitely takes into account those conditions. That's why we've invested heavily in things like weather models and situational awareness models. Um, a lot of what we're doing, things like hardening the system, managing vegetation, helps us make sure our equipment is safe and resilient in the face of wildfire threats. And as I touched on, investing heavily in meteorologists and new data scientists and new skills and technology to help us do that. So I think hopefully that answers the question, Simon.
All right, I think it does. Amy, thank you so much for your insight and for being here to answer some of these questions. Oh, we do have one new post. Hang on one sec. I think that brings us to the end of our queue. There's a follow-up question, but I think you've already answered that. Yeah, thank you again, Amy, for being here. Again, today's presentation, along with the slides, will be posted to our website. That's pacificpower.net/wildfire safety. In addition to more information on the company wildfire mitigation plans, you can also find a lot of good stuff on there about outage kit checklists, links to public safety power shutoff maps, and also some more information about PSPS in general, and also a 7-day forecasting table. You can also find a recording of this presentation on our Pacific Power YouTube channel. Thank everyone. I wanted to thank everyone for being here and have a good rest of your day.